Hi, I'm Yasmin Owusu, and this is my producer, Charlie Kesenek.
But I'm your husband, and you're using all my stuff right now. What are you talking
So anyway, I've been looking for a one-stop shop podcast for wellness, amateur sociology, psychology, pop culture, and whatever else sparks my interest. So I created one. We are limited to no lanes. We hit the gas and get into it. This is Peaked. Press play. Hi, welcome to Peaked Podcast. I'm Yasmin. I am broadcasting to you from my little nook in my house. I'm solo today. And today I want to talk about the service industry. I have recently exited it. I have hung up my proverbial and also literal apron very recently, at the end of August, in fact. Just a decision I made. I'm halfway through life. Probably that's the reasonable expectation when you're 43 is you're around halfway through your life. And as a person who has not been super career driven, and I guess I'm not innately that, but I've just kind of realized that I want a higher earning potential. I know it's late. It's late to realize that. But yeah, I was able to live very comfortably living in the service industry. For my purposes, I found it pretty comfortable. And I've had some high paying service jobs. Like I must say, like I worked at a restaurant where I worked a 3-day week. One of those days was a double, granted, on a Saturday, but I worked a 3-day week and I made like, $1,400 a week, right? So like you can compare that to some entry level, I don't know. I've never worked a corporate job, so I couldn't tell you, but I just know that it took care of my overhead pretty well. And there is just kind of a ceiling on it if you're not willing to own a restaurant or really manage one in any serious way, which I realized early on that it was not for me. Especially as you get to be an elder waiter where like as a 43-year-old waiter, you get those kinds of offers like of management or whatever, probably just because you're a little bit more responsible and a little bit over the being on the struggle bus and partying kind of thing. But I really did find that I just like to be able to like clock out and not have people like emailing me and saying that, their dog ate their sister or whatever it is and they can't come in and then I have to cover them or I didn't really like doing inventory and all that kind of stuff. So I just found myself being happier just being a regular old front of house, been a barista, a bit of server, even done a little bit of prep. What else? I mean, I worked at a cafe, just loosely loosely worked at a cafe. So I was just handing people croissants and whatnot. You name it. I mean, other than bartending, which just like never really clicked with me. I don't think I have that kind of social bandwidth at the end of the day. Like with serving, you can kind of do the sort of polite passing, like smaller conversations. With bartending. Sometimes you kind of end up being a bit of a therapist. And yeah, that's not in the cards for me. And it definitely is not in the cards for me at 5 a.m., which in New York City is a very real possibility that could happen to you at 5 a.m. Yeah, so I did most of my service industry work in New York City, where I lived until kind of recently. I moved to Austin 4 years ago, and I was living in New York City from when I was 20 until like I was 40 around, like, I guess, well, no, like 38, 39, something like that. I'm not a math person. I don't give energy to math. But either way, most of my adult life, I lived in New York City. I worked in the service industry there. Moved to Austin right around, when I'm hitting that kind of like 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. I'm 43 now. And I just recently just decided to be done. I don't have a huge plan of what's next. I mean, doing this. And that's uncharacteristic. Even as someone who maybe is not career driven, I am pretty responsible. And so I usually do like to secure my next branch before I like leap off of the one I'm on. But in this case, it really just did feel like, hitting that midpoint of my life. That I really felt like I needed to get this cleared out to see what's next. And I was never going to have that headspace or bandwidth to figure that out while I was still, rolling silverware or what have you. Late at night. Also, my God, you really do age out of that, or at least I'll speak for myself. I aged out of that ability to be so on it and like keep everything straight after 10 p.m. Like I wake up with my dog at like 6:30, 7, whatever it is. And start my day early. I have a whole day by the time I have to go into my restaurant job. And a lot of these restaurants, they open at like 3 or 4 or whatever, 5 o'clock. And so by the time I roll in there, I've had this whole day. And now you have to kind of like keep that brain sharp and like keep people's meals coursed and remember to go pick up their drink and, remember all your side work is piling up behind you. Um, yeah, so it wasn't just, an idea of, like, I need to pivot out of this. I mean, largely that. I wanted to see, what else I could get into. It's a long time to be doing anything at the end of the day, and, I get older and, my coworkers both get younger and stay the same, 20-ish age, right? So then you're also maybe not relating with the people you're working with, day to day as much, as lovely as they may be, we're in very different phases of life, and that's not inherently good or bad, it just is, right? We hopefully change and evolve as we get older. So um, it would be really, really unfortunate and depressing for me if I found myself 100% relating to everyone who was 20 and just starting out, right? Um, but yeah, so this pivot is being made, and partially probably because I'm getting too old to do it, like mentally and physically. uh, but yeah, in the time that I've been in it, there it hasn't been without its, interesting parts and its growth, and I hear a lot of dialogue about it, some of it, a little bit uninformed that I've definitely felt like I wanna weigh in on. Um, I'll start with that. So, I do hear a lot of dialogue, online on my brain rotting on TikTok or Instagram or what have you, about, the tip system, right? Um, so in the United States, where we currently reside, um, there is a system that I don't remember being at the vote, so don't call me out for this, but we decided that we tip servers, right? So servers are generally not paid a livable wage. They're paid like $2 and change. It kind of changes depending on where you live. Here in Austin, it's $2 and change an hour, taxed. So that's before taxes. It's $2 and change an hour. I think we can all agree that no one expects anybody to like pay their rent and feed themselves on that. It's predicated on the idea that the customer tips, and those tips accumulate, and that's how you make your livable wage. Supposedly including the $2, but I mean after taxes, this amounts to like $6 a day, right? It's not really working out. Um, and listen, we can have our issues with the tip system. I could talk you through that. I could also maybe possibly agree. Some restaurants have tried to do the livable wage model, and a lot of them honestly have found that that is impossible, and in some cases have even shuttered because the overhead for the restaurant was too crushing, between the rent, paying purveyors, you name it, and then labor costs. It really is hard for restaurants to break even. They're called money pits for a reason. The overhead of running a restaurant really is astronomical, and most restaurants that are new and don't have insanely deep pockets don't break even, and certainly aren't profitable in the first couple of years they're open. So it is easy for a restaurant to fail, and I think maybe that's why we came up or maintained this system. I think it actually started with something weird with slavery, but we maintained this system almost as a subsidy to restaurants, almost as a way to make it sort of affordable to still go out to eat. So, you know, restaurateurs are not charging you, $60 for a plate of pasta so they can keep their lights on, right? They're keeping that overhead just a little bit lower so they can give you prices that are a little bit more equitable, and still their employees want to work there because they're not making $8 for 8 hours, right? And that's the idea of it. Again, you could disagree with that. You could say, let's be like England. Let's be like, the Netherlands, France. Let's pay these waiters a livable wage, not an insane wage. Like they're not, doing open heart surgery. We're not saying that. No one's asking for like, $65 an hour, but like, I think we have 20 is reasonable, right? If you work like, I don't give energy to math. You want to maybe make like 80 to $100 in a day in a bad day, right? Um, but Again, that's all up for discussion in my world. What is not up for discussion is understanding that as a current system and deciding that you're just going to shirk it and not tip and just say that it's for only the most excellent service gets a tip. That's how it works in Italy, where someone is paid a livable wage. Then you can be like, but they were super extra nice and they went above and beyond, and I'll give them a little extra. That's really not what we're saying with the tipping system in this country, is that when it's extra, you give a little extra. We're saying if you want to keep restaurants open and if you want to keep them semi-affordable, so we're not only able to go out to eat like twice a year, like a lot of places. But, it's kind of just more of this affordable thing where you're paying anywhere from 15 to, depending on where you live regionally, like here in Austin, an entree can be anywhere from like, $15, $16 to like $36. And if you're going super high end, then more than that. But that's kind of the range, right? It would be a lot higher if these places had to pay, the full labor costs of their bartenders, barbacks, waiters, food runners, hosts. If they're paying all of those people a livable wage, they'd have to have some pretty serious investors and some seriously deep pockets to keep that going without the tip system. Again, you can still want the tip system, or not want the tip system, but while it exists, the response and it's a reality. It's the reality that's a system we're in. So your choice is to, vote in your next local elections for there not being a tip system, and nationally potentially, advocate for that. But I don't think we just screw the servers and the bartenders. So there's that. Another big one that everyone and in my case, exiting the service industry probably has wanted to go absolutely global with is, please stop straggling us. Please get closer. Please do not enter. You see, I'm getting in my feelings. I can't speak English. Do not enter into a restaurant. Do not enter into a restaurant 30 minutes before close and expect to sit there and have full service meal. Like, I understand they say they close at 9 and you're here at 8:30. Do you actually think that you can sit down, look at your menu, think it over, get your drinks, have them come back, get your appetizers, have those come, eat those, be cleared, have your new full entree come in, have that be cleared, chat to your friends, finish another glass of wine? Do you really think that's all happening in a half hour? Just plan for it. And I know a lot of you think it's all these bratty bartenders and servers. They're in their 20s. They just want to get out so they can go downtown or whatever. I don't know. You can see how old I am. Go downtown. I don't know where they go. Go to South Lamar or whatever. Go party. You're screwing everyone down the chain. It's not just the bratty server that maybe whatever, these young people are so annoying. You are screwing everyone top to the bottom of the chain when you do that in a restaurant. And I'll tell you who all these characters are. You're screwing us the least, the servers, because when we turn key and you finally do leave, you straggler rat, when you finally do leave, we have probably had time while you're tapering off and sitting there on your third glass of wine you shouldn't have ordered, knowing that you came in so late. Everyone's been watching you. By the way, the dishwasher's also been watching your wine levels because everybody wants to go home. But while you've been drinking that, we've probably been able to finish doing our side work to a pretty good degree, that when you finally do get out, turn the key, and the most we maybe have to do is put some, chairs on the tables and finish up a couple more of the silverware that you were using super late. But you know who has to who's not able to clean their entire station because you might want a dessert, or you might decide you want to fuck around and get another appetizer last minute, or what? The cooks, the line, the dishwasher can't do all the cook's dishes because the cooks are still using them or holding on to them and not passing them to dish in case they need to cook something for you. So they're hanging on to all their dishes, and then they're going to just dump them on the dishwasher the second you leave. All that's coming back. The bartender also can't shut down all their stuff. That I know we don't care about the bartender. We're all young brats who just want to go downtown and party, right? No, no, no. All the bartenders' dishes are getting dumped on that dishwasher too. And now guess who's also being backed up is the porter who maybe comes and cleans everything after all of us leave. They're also pulled on a later schedule. And the manager, I know, you love a good manager. You straggler Karens, you love a good manager. So let me give you the manager because you'll have empathy for them if not for us, right? So the manager now has to get our checkouts, has to check everyone's station, has to do all of the fucking money, has to possibly do some inventory after the entire service is done, has to make sure that everybody who worked there that day did what they were supposed to do. So they're there late. All because you can't plan and make sure to give yourself an hour when you go to a restaurant. And I'm saying the 30-minute people. I mean, there are those 10-minute terrorists too. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Nobody likes you when you do it. And no matter how nice we are about it, by the way, and we usually are, we're usually like, oh, yeah, we're open. Sure. We're not happy. Nobody is. And you think that it's just us right in the front. You're like, whatever, these fucking idiots. The kitchen are staring at you. They're staring at you. You know, Jose back there doing the dishes, he's staring at you. You know, the young chef, whoever, he's also staring at being like, everyone is waiting. Do you really want to be that guy? Do you really want to be that guy? Do you think it's cute to be that guy? Don't be that guy. And that being said, I'll take some hits. As a person who's worked in restaurants, there are places that go too far with that. They start to bust it down an hour before, and you're like, "You guys close in an hour. How you don't have this anymore?" They're like, "No, the bartender shut it down." I'm like, "Okay, don't get crazy. I'm not saying we need to pre-close to the point where we can't serve anybody an hour before, but let's be reasonable. How long does it actually take you to have an entire meal? Give yourself that amount of time. Don't be like, oh, if I can squeeze myself in the door, that still is keeping everybody, an hour, 2 hours after their allotted time. And again, we're not exactly paid an hourly. You know what I mean? So we're sitting here waiting for just your tip and the entire rest of the place is empty. So it'd be one thing if we get, the $30, 2 hours worth of the $60, that amount of math I can do, right? If we got that, but no, it's like the $2.35 taxed is what we're making other than whatever you're going to tip us. And we're probably not our most lovely. So maybe that's not even a great tip. Anyway, that's my bitch, my kvetch, my exiting, whining about stragglers in the service industry. And I mean, I'm just a server. I can't even imagine bartenders. And yikes, that's a very different story at 2 a.m. or in New York at 4 a.m. Trying to get people out of there who are just like sitting there and nursing their last drink. There's no good way to tell them they have to leave. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. Yeah, so there's that one. And another one is, this is actually just more advice to anyone who's still in the service industry. If you have not come to this yet on your own, let me tell you as a veteran of service, it sounds like stolen valor when I say that, a veteran of the service industry. I was not in NOM or anything like that. Don't be afraid to pull a manager in. Just do it. Pull a manager in. If anyone even slightly escalated with me in my last, let's say 5-6 years of service, if anyone even slightly escalated, like if I was like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have that item anymore, and they started to be like, but less, I'm like, oh, I got you. I'm gonna bring a manager and they're gonna help you out. I'm gonna get a manager. I'm gonna see what they can do. Here's why you should do that. I know you want to argue with the customer. I know none of us like when people escalate with us or have an attitude or are unreasonable or whatever you feel about how they may be behaving or how entitled they may seem. But, it's not your circus and it's not your clowns. It's not your rodeo. It's not your clowns, whatever the phrase is. It's not your goat rodeo. It's someone else's. And you're not being paid a salary. You're only going to get the tip that this person who's escalating, who's, generally people who care in at restaurants and not always the best tippers anyway. So like, you're probably not getting anything great out of this. So pull in the salaried person, pull them in for it. It's great on many levels. It will allow their whatever concern to be addressed quickly, and it'll allow their concern to be addressed by someone who has authority, which, a lot of the time you don't. They just kind of want to throw you that hot potato, but you actually can't even catch it because you can't make these decisions autonomously, right? But also, it gives the heavy lifting of that kind of difficult interaction to someone who's being adequately paid. They're really here just for that, to de-escalate things, to, give the extras, to, whatever it is. And it also just takes away their little power trip because half the time they want to call in a manager when they're not satisfied or they feel entitled and they can't get something they want to get and they feel entitled to. But now you've asked for the manager. So you've kind of like, pulled the fucking stopper out of their balloon and all of that, excitement about getting you in trouble, whatever it is, just goes away. Because like I love to pull in a good manager. I love to be like, you know what? I'm gonna get you all the support you need. I'm gonna get you a manager right now before you can even be upset. So I highly recommend doing that. I also highly recommend that, again, I know people can be annoying. I know that people can be so taxing, and being asked the same question, having people just not be aware and be oblivious about the same thing day in and day out can be draining. But just keep reminding yourself that none of this comes out of your paycheck. Like, none of this really affects your bottom line at the end of the day. So if you can give someone something and your manager or your owner, whatever, not your owner, that sounds nuts, the owner of your plantation, no, or the owner of the establishment will allow you to do something, do it. It's not for you to raise the 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds of the United States. It's not for you to teach them how to behave. It's not for you to give them an education on etiquette or entitlement or whatever. It's not for you to do that. It's for you to get their food to them in a timely fashion, be polite, take their order, make sure that they get everything on time and everything's clean, and, there's not too much lagging, and whatever. They have a decent time, and you're, kind and polite. And that's kind of it. And they get their food, right? So you don't need to get so engaged with how much or little that they are appreciative, or, how much or little they should be asking for things. It doesn't matter. They are asking for it. So see if it can be done. Why does it matter to you? It doesn't come out of your paycheck. Again, just make it your mantra. Not my rodeo, not my rodeo, not my clowns. I'm not sure. Is it like circus and clowns? Or is it rodeo and clowns? There are clowns at both things. I mean, pick your clown event, but it's not yours. It's someone else's. So let them decide how much or little they want to discipline the clowns. Okay. So I've exhausted that. Another thing that I have really taken away from working in the service industry is how important it is to hold and maintain your own standards, no matter what the surrounding um, ethos and standards may be. And I think that's actually been a really great thing for me that I've taken out of it, because a lot of the time it's thankless. If you are one person who is valuing being on time, if you're valuing actually finishing your side work properly and keeping your spaces clean, and um, being on top of, making sure your table maintenance is good. And I don't know, this is getting maybe a little too industry jargony, but if you're really, those are values to you, right? Whatever you do, you want to do it well, right? Um, Maintaining that in every environment, no matter what is happening around you, has been so helpful in other areas of my life. And I think because it's so challenging in that environment, because it is very contagious. It's contagious if people like, entropy is contagious. If apathy is contagious. If somebody starts to not care and they start to, shirk certain things or just let certain things kind of like go to rot, standard wise, people follow suit. And sometimes they don't follow suit because they're like, oh, well, they don't have to do it. I don't have to do it. It's more coming from, well, this person keeps not doing it and it's falling on me. So now, I mean, I don't want to be the only one stuck doing it, right? So like, I'm not going to do it either to show them. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that it's like you can't do as like a fuck you to someone else because it's kind of just a fuck you to you. Like being willing to be dirty or cut corners that end up being just like you kind of being gross and having a poor work ethic or being, late or just crappy at your job, that's not really a screw you to anyone but yourself and your own standards, and your self image essentially suffers from it. If you lower your standards of how you behave in any situation, it kind of affects your self image ultimately at some point. And I have also found in my experience, if you maintain that standard around yourself, it can kind of elevate the standard of other people around you, if only in the short term when they're working with you. But it does happen. And that also sometimes is not just purely based on like the work you're doing, like the hands on work you're doing, but like the demeanor you're bringing in. Like if you bring in kind of a let's just have a good shift. Let's get all our stuff done. Let's get it done efficiently and let's have a laugh. And, whatever bad happens, we'll wipe our tears with our money, right? If you come in with that energy, it kind of like wraps people up in that energy and they want to be in it too. And everyone's just kind of has this like camaraderie and like galvanized like vibe towards the shift. And yeah, it's just helped me in other situations. Like you're on a road trip, you get a flat. It's like, everyone could really go into this really bad place, or you can kind of be in that, well, we're here, we have to figure it out. You know what I mean? So I think it's given me a lot of life skills that were unexpected. Um, yeah. I mean, it definitely gave me an interesting feeling about leadership. Um, I think most of the time I shied away from like actual like appointed leadership. Like I never, like I maybe mentioned before, I never wanted to be a manager necessarily. I think that I always just preferred to like lead by example or just do what I was doing and hope that it would translate around me. And a lot of the time it did. And that was like really lovely to see. Um, I really do recommend the service industry. I know I've talked about things that are annoying that both we do to others and others maybe do to us. And I also do want to say I can be as oblivious and like pendeja as the next person when I'm on the other side of the counter. Like if you just come in, on a day where, maybe you had a rough night the night before and you're just kind of rolling in and you just sort of forget how to order. Like I totally get that. And I have full empathy for that. So I don't want people to think that every little thing you do when you go in a restaurant is judged. I mean, it is going to be by some 16-year-old who's like hungover and just can't deal with anything. But for the most part, we all also go to restaurants. We all also go to bars, and we just know the idea of like how you freeze up and you don't know what you want and, you know, all that good stuff. So it's not as us and them as maybe it can seem. I've seen a lot of these like weird TikToks with this like bartenders who are like mad about giving people water and just arbitrary stuff like that. I will say there are certain things that can seem so derailing when you're super busy. So I've never been a bartender, so I don't know this one specifically, but I hear the thing about them being annoyed about giving people cups of water. And I think people are missing why. And I'm not condoning it, but maybe let me just try to explain it. I don't think it's that they begrudge you the water. It's not coming out of their paycheck again, right? It's not coming out of the bartender's paycheck if you want water. I think it's just one more thing to do. You have to remember what you see in front of you when you're in a restaurant, when you're in a bar, is not all that is going on, right? So when this bartender's across from you and you think you're next, you might not even be next, right? Like a bar is not like it's not a straightforward line. It's like this. It's a shoot. They know kind of who's come in first, and they have tabs in the back of their mind. They have the cocktail that they have half made over there because they knew it would be quicker to pull a beer. So they have the ice and they've got like, just the liquor in there, and they know they got to muddle something. So there's a lot cycling in someone's brain. So this bartender that you just asked for the cup of water from probably has like 3 tabs they're supposed to close out. That girl over there that asked for a mojito at a bar that, probably someone had to go run into the restaurant that's not anywhere near the bars, walk in to go get mint because they don't have it as their prep because they don't really sell mojitos, but they're being nice. They're making it for you. So that's all going on when you ask them for this water, right? So it can kind of like make your house of cards fall down when someone asks you for one more thing. So if you ever do get that vibe from a server or a bartender or whatever it is, I'm not saying that it's lovely or be okay. It is our job. I understand that. But maybe just so you don't feel as bad and as personally targeted or like you don't feel stupid, just understand that probably what happened is they were building a house of cards of like several moving parts. They're like, I had to clean off that table outside. I have 3 tabs that I need to close down. That girl asked me for a wrench. That, da, 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 da. And then you ask for a glass of water and it just all goes. That's probably what you're seeing in their face. I'm just saying, if that helps you, great. If it doesn't, you can just leave it there. Because like I say, ultimately it's our job. But I do think it is a fun industry. It's a fun way to meet people when you first move to a city. Like for me, it was easier to make friends than say my husband Charlie, because he was working at a music school and now he kind of does his own music lessons privately. But he was working in a music school and there was like 3 other people who work there that he would not even see half the time because their scheduling is so different and you're in like these rooms. But I would just every new restaurant that I worked in like 4 since I moved here, and every new restaurant I would just meet new people and we'd just be invited to after work drinks or, I got invited to Friendsgiving like the first year that I was here. So it's a really great way to break the ice in a new town. Even as a 43-year-old, and I'm working with 20-year-olds, everyone's so welcoming. And so that's always been really great. And I'll miss a lot of things about it and I'll always think fondly of it. But I will say, now that I've left and I've been out of it for about a month, when I go to restaurants, it's just really nice to just not think as much about what's going on behind the scenes and just try to like resuspend my disbelief and just like believe in the front of house of it all and not think about, how the sausage is made. Um, it's been a very like meandering blah 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 thing. This is just maybe a bit of my exit interview from the service industry more than a proper podcast. But here it was, and here it is, and I'll see you next time.